It seems like the market has been incredibly volatile and unstable lately. So in times like this, people often look for a safe place to put their money. Sometimes that option is a Canadian bank. And so there are the big 5 Canadian banks, but which one might be a good place to put your money? Welcome to G-Metric Stock Analytics, where we use data to help us make wise financial decisions. Please subscribe if that sounds useful to you. And before I get started, I just want to say that this video is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. All data shown reflects my own analysis and opinions, not recommendations. Investing always involves risk. All right, so let's get started. Let me get my marker up going. So this is my G-Metric dashboard. It has been simplified from the last video that I had made. So basically everything that we need to know is on the screen in front of us, so there's no scrolling involved, and I've isolated it down to my I think are the most important metrics that I have on this dashboard, and I've created it's like a versus environment. We put 2 stocks up, we compare them across all of the important metrics, and we see which one seems to be the better choice. So I'm going to go through all the 5 Canadian banks in this versus type manner, and we're going to see which one kind of comes out on top. So the first metric that we have here is called the Threshold Outperformance Index, and it basically is you look at our actual win frequency over this 5-year period here, and then we compare it to their threshold win frequency to break even. We can see that Toronto Dominion Bank wins 52.4% of the time, and its threshold is 50.8%. So that gives it a score of 1.03. The same stat for Royal Bank of Canada gives it a score of 1.06. So it's the better number, so it's green. The TD one is red. Looking at stability, we see we're just looking at days within plus or minus 3% variability. So if the stock changes more than 3% change, either in the positive or negative direction, it has an impact on its stability score. So basically we're looking for stocks that kind of like they move, but they don't have these big swings. So the stability score of Toronto Dominion is 96, as we can see here, and for Royal Bank it's 98. So that's slightly better. And so Royal Bank has the green and Toronto Dominion has the red. The positive trend persistence index, we're looking at 5-day winning streaks versus 5-day losing streaks. So 61% of these 5-day streaks are winning for Toronto Dominion, 61% are winning for Royal Bank. We have a push here, they're black. And then the trend quality index is basically we plot this threshold outperformance index on a 51-day rolling average over time. Looking at the standard deviation of the data points here, we assess the quality of the trend. TD has a quality of 0.783 and Royal Bank has a quality of 0.834. Down below, we have price per earnings. It's not one of my deciding factors when I'm using this dashboard, but it's important to have up. And then we have our annual rate of return there. Sometimes it's just plotted here on the yellow, and it could be a factor if stocks are very close to each other. We see Royal Bank has a better annual rate of return here at 15.9%. So between these two, it seems pretty obvious that the Royal Bank is performing better on this dashboard. All right, so let's switch it out. Our next one we're going to look at is the Royal Bank of Canada, ticker RY. We can find it down here, Royal Bank, and now we're going to let it populate. Come on, give it a second here. Oh no, Royal Bank is over here. So we're not doing Royal Bank. We're going to do Scotiabank, BNS. BNS, Bank of Nova Scotia. Let's see how that compares. So we go across the same metrics. And now let's get the marker out that we see. Royal Bank wins here, Royal Bank wins here, Royal Bank wins here. Bank of Nova Scotia has a slightly higher trend quality, so it wins over here. Royal Bank is having a better annual rate of return. So given all that, I would say that the Royal Bank is winning this particular comparison as well. So back to selecting our next one. So let's do we do BMO. Bank of Montreal. Take the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange one. And let's compare. Give it a second to populate. I think it's populated now, so let's do Control. We see that the Royal Bank wins here, Royal Bank wins here, positive trend persistence, Royal Bank wins here, here, and just pretty much everywhere. So this one's pretty straightforward. And so let me just Control Z out of here and then escape. And I have to select our final bank. It's CIBC. I think that's ticker CM, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, right there. And let's see how this compares. So let's get our marker up again. We see Royal Bank wins at 1.06, pretty close here at 105. 98 for stability. Stability score here is 96. We see that the positive trend persistence of CM, of Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, is a little better than the Royal Bank, and the trend quality is better for Royal Bank, but it's not so bad for Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce either. Now, if we look at price per earnings, it's slightly cheaper. That's not the most important part, but there's the interesting annual rate of return of 17.8% here. So the Imperial Bank of Commerce is performing a little better price-wise over the last 5 years. So right here, it's kind of a pick'em. You see Royal Bank has more metrics performing better than the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. So at this point, if you had to pick one, I'd say the Royal Bank of Canada is the one that's performing the best and might be the Canadian bank to add to your portfolio. That's a quick little run through of how this dashboard works, but I've also started creating something new. It's a quadrant where I have 4 quadrants. And so let's go have a look. I've plotted all the banks there, so let's go have a look at this quadrant. So basically, Canadian, I have to put BNS in that second one. So let me, just to make this work right, BNS right here, Bank of Nova Scotia. I'll put that back in here. This is just to make my quadrants look right because they're linked to this data. So I go to my quadrants and I've got all 4 Canadian bank, or all 5 Canadian banks here. And so I have the y-axis is comfortability is what I call it, and the trend quality across the bottom. So this trend quality is basically, so if we go back here, the trend quality is basically, I take this number right here, escape, and if I go in here and trend qualities are over here and I cube it, because I'm trying to create a greater distribution, because they kind of group, the trend quality numbers all kind of group together, so I try to create a distribution by cubing it. And then for the comfortability, from my dashboard, I'm looking at these 2 scores right here, stability and positive trend persistence, and I basically take the average of both of those. So if we go back to the quadrant, I've got the average of those two. I've got the average of those 2 going up and down here, and I've got my trend quality cubed going across down here. And we can see that if we're going for trend quality, Bank of Nova Scotia right here had the highest trend quality. If you're going for comfortability, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce was the most comfortable investment. So what I'm getting at here when I say comfortability is that it's not a stock that's going to give you a lot of heart attacks. It's not a stock that's going to make you lose sleep, because it's operating within that plus or minus 3% kind of window. And when it has 5-day winning streaks, they're more often, when it has 5-day streaks, they're more often winning streaks than losing streaks. So it kind of creates an emotional kind of capacity for handling ups and downs with this stock, because more often than not, it's giving you good returns. And so you can live with the downside when you're getting a lot of upsides. So basically, it's up to the investor how much of that they need. So if you're an investor and the big swings don't bother you, maybe you don't need to just look at stocks that are high on the comfortability scale here. But if you get uncomfortable, if you get nervous about your investments, you don't want to have a stock that sways up and down, because you might end up selling too early and missing out on some very good gains. So it's like investor psychology is the y-axis, and the quality of the pricing trend is the x-axis. Anyways, I'm going to be talking about this more in the future, but that's the entire video for now. And so before I sign off, I just want to reiterate that nothing in this video constitutes a financial advice. I'm not a registered financial advisor. Any stocks or metrics discussed are presented for educational purposes only and reflect my personal framework at a point in time. Always do your own research and consult a qualified professional before making investment decisions. All right, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.